My family has been on this bay since the beginning of the area as far as the white man was concerned. I think they were in this area by the late 1630s.
Well, my mother came from England. Her name was Entwistle, and she come from Ramsbottom, near Lancashire.
I was born in Ireland. I was 21 when I came here. It was a matter of getting a job.
My father came from a beautiful little village called Saint-Denis-sur-le-Richelieu, which is not far from Montreal.
I came to Fall River from Aberdeen, Scotland.
I was 2 months and a half old when my father, God bless his soul, came to Fall River from St. Michael's, Bayshore.
All they thought America, that money was plentiful here. Even pennies, they'd throw them away.
Arrivals, new beginnings. They came to a land of possibility, trading the known for the what might be. Some came with only the promise of a job and a few faded photographs. But they wove their lives together and built a city. The spirit of its people is the fabric of Fall River.
Everything was here. You had shellfish and seafood and beautiful farming area, and you had this great, fantastic 2 lakes or ponds we call Watuppa, because the water that made Fall River was the Fall River, the falling river. The Indians call it Quequechan.
Here in Narragansett Bay and Mount Hope Bay, we have this beautiful natural harbor that is unsurpassed. The Indians were all over this area in canoes. The white men simply said, well, we'll use the same system too.
My family, the Church family, they were involved here with the huge land purchases. And of course, Benjamin Church was the one who organized the colonists against King Philip in the 1670s.
We were farmers. We were farming around here.
Fall River was a typical agrarian community.
In 1811 was the first mill, and of course these smart men realized that if Slater could run a cotton mill in Pawtucket with water power, we could run a cotton mill in Fall River because we had the Quequechan River. Only 2 years later, they started the Fall River manufactory in the Troy.
It wasn't, say, a Boston company that decided to go out and organize mills on a river. It was people that were basically farmers, people that knew the value of land and how valuable it would become. These people were visible in city affairs, they were visible in the building of the churches, the public institutions, and the hospitals. It's all the same names.
The Borden family were the premier entrepreneurs in Fall River.
Yankee ingenuity, vision, and drive transformed a town of ponds and pastures into one of the world's great textile cities in less than half a century. By mid-century, the opportunity of the mills began to act as a magnet for English and Irish textile workers. But the big boom came after the Civil War, with a pent-up demand for cloth spurring manufacturers towards ever greater production. In 1 year alone, 20 new mills opened their doors. But whose labor would keep Fall River growing?
Fall River was the immigrant city. Compared to every other city in the United States, it had the greatest percentage of immigrants.
I remember my father telling me that there used to be signs up, help wanted, Irish need not apply.
My mother lived in Corky Row. They called it Corky Row because a lot of the Irish people who emigrated here came from the County Cork in Ireland.
My grandmother was Mary Ann Kelly. If you kept your windows pretty, they called you the lace curtain Irish. And my aunt Ellen, she was very, very proud, house proud. and she was always fixing their windows. They were Irish 100%.
It's the same old story. These people came from the province of Quebec. Multitudes of them. These young men didn't know what it was to have a dime in their pocket. Some of them had never seen money. I mean that. And they got a job, and they got money. They got money. They can make a life of their own. And many of them have two intentions in mind. I'm going to send some money to home. And when I made enough money, I'll go back.
And we settled in, down below the hill, they used to call that at one time, Little Canada, Petit Canada. And they were, I'd say, about 95% French.
In the days when we were growing up, they were called Frenchy Babou or Canucks. I don't think there was anything vicious about it.
They looked like stuffed sausages. They had 3 coats and 5 skirts. They wore everything into Fall River that they owned.
Fall River needed immigrants. In fact, it could not possibly survive without them.
Polish, Portuguese, Russian Jews, Italians, Ukrainians, Lebanese, Greeks.
By the early 1900s, the city's factories were filled with immigrants. 97% of the male textile workers and an even higher percentage of the women workers were foreign-born. The largest group that has made an impact in Fall River history in the 20th century are the Portuguese.
The reason why most people came from the Azores because of the poverty, because they were looking for some opportunity.
Portuguese are a very industrious type of people, close to the soil.
By their hard work, their determination, their very strong family life, they were able to make a name for themselves.
The Jewish people eventually came to settle in 2 or 3 locations in Fall River. One was in the Flint and the other was in the South End, and each area developed a community of its own with its own place of prayer and small schools and people in business.
Industry is the presiding goddess of Fall River. An idle man could no more live there than a beetle in a beehive.
15 minutes before the mill would start up, the boiler room would get up steam. And when he would get the momentum up to full speed, then he would put on a red light. When the red light went on, that was the signal for everybody to start their own machine.
The hours were long, the pay was small. 6 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the evening.
Each weaver had 8 looms apiece to take care of. And they also had to sweep the floor, sweep the looms off, and there would be maybe 200-300 looms on one floor. If you wanted to be anybody, you had to go in at the bottom and work your way up.
It's important for people to understand that the labor system in Fall River required that children work in the mills. 2 working parents alone couldn't earn an adequate living. Children had to work to help support the family.
A puny child operative in Fall River was sent from a mill to wash a mop in a pond, and the mop, on being saturated with water, was too heavy for the child's strength and dragged it into the water, whence the little thing was taken out drowned. At the funeral, her age was registered as 9 years.
I went to weaving, and I learned quick. My, but I was proud when I got them first 4 looms. At first the noise is fierce, and you have to breathe the cotton all the time. But you get used to it. Lots of us is deaf. It's bad one way. When the bobbin slides out and a girl gets hurt, you can't hear her shout. Not if she just screams. You gotta wait till you can see her.
My sweet 16, my finger get caught on the gears. I was always screaming so much. The boss was way, way far off, but I could see him running. When he came, he knocked the belt. So this finger was going, and this one was going in too. And the boss was saying, "Don't let her see."
But we've got a friend in heaven who looks down on the poor, and all our little troubles He will help us to endure. He will guide us in our actions to do the thing that's right. So join the Weavers' Union, join this very night. Yes, join the Weavers' Union, join this very night.
I don't think that there's any justification for some of the conditions that were going on, but the people who came here were probably better off than they had ever been in their lives, and at least had the opportunity at some point to improve themselves where they never had had that before.
Colonel Durfee's mill was built 100 years ago. Little acorns and big oaks, how small beginnings grow. Merchants, millmen, employees will surely make big boom while we go marching together. Hurrah, hurrah for spindle and for loom. Hurrah, hurrah, your rivals give us room. Merchants, millmen, employees will surely make things boom while we go marching together. That was the song during the centennial.
Mr. President, honorable guests and citizens of Fall River, that small seed planted 100 years ago has developed into a mighty tree and has made our city the largest cotton manufacturing center in the United States.
President Taft's visit in 1911 clearly demonstrated the important status Fall River had achieved. It had become a city of influence and great prosperity.
The elite of the nation, from presidents to captains of industry to the common people, everyone preferred the Fall River line.
On the old Fall River line, on the old Fall River line, I fell for Sylvie's line that's talking to the telephone line. Then we fell in with the parson, and we tried and tried. But I wish, oh Lord, I'd fell overboard on the old Fall River line.
In their day, the Fall River Line steamers were the most wonderful, glamorous, exciting things that people had seen. And the food was absolutely out of this world, and you could get anything you wanted.
Everything was velvet mail carriages, golden velvet, red, green.
Oh, that was the thrill. Come on down, watch the New York boat go out. Everything was refined, if you know what I mean. There was no loud talk. And if anybody wanted to get up and dance, they could.
When I was little, when the 12 o'clock bells were ringing, we would go to the mill with the lunch pails.
Made myself a big stick with little hooks on it, and I was able to take 6 lunches at the same time. We used to get 10 cents a week for that.
In the bottom of the pail, they used to put the tea. Then they'd have a pot for like potatoes and the meat went on top. Then a little round tin, with a little pastry in it. Anytime I fell coming down the viaduct and she got a little bit of snow in her pastry.
The neighborhood was all nationalities. It was English, it was Irish, it was Scotch, it was Jewish, it was Polish, it was Portuguese. Everybody lived together.
I was raised speaking Portuguese. I never spoke English until I went to school.
We spoke Arabic at home because our parents didn't know English that well.
And I could hear my mother half a block up calling me, Vanja! Would go down 3 houses, Vanja, your mother's calling, or Mama Chivoa. We learned the Polish and the Ukrainian. It was a very, very close-knit thing.
They would sit down and they would talk and they would play cards. Primarily they would play cards. Sueca. It's almost like they were having a fight. You know, okay, mine beats yours, and boom, they bang the table.
I came to Fall River to play soccer. Fall River was a great sports town.
My grandfather was the first of our family to come here. Even though he worked in a factory, whenever I saw him at home, he had a suit coat on, a vest, a white shirt, and a tie.
I had a sister who was married, and 3 or 4 kids were delivered in our house. We'd wake up in the morning and find ourselves sleeping on the floor. That meant my sister was having another baby.
Of course, we had no bathroom at all. We had to go outside. And there was running water, but no electricity, no gas. So if we moved from room to room, it had to be with a kerosene lamp.
The milkman and the baker and the butcher, they all just knew each other and they knew the families they were dealing with.
You'd have the same cop for a lifetime, the same postman for a lifetime.
In those days, there were stores all over the place. Grocery stores, butchers, fish peddlers. They used to come around with fish in the wagon.
You could see in the windows the stacks of olive oil cans, the garlic hanging in the windows, the sausages hanging in the windows.
This was R.A. McClure's, and there wasn't a better store in the world than this. You could go in there and buy from a toothpick up to finishing your home.
It was almost a weekly ritual that you would take your girl to the Durfee Theater on Saturday night, and after theater you would go to the Nonpareil Spa and have ice cream sodas.
Ice cream was the thing. If your boyfriend took you for ice cream, that was it.
Then what was big thrills for us was our concerts in the South Park. We had a beautiful pavilion, and you could go in there and order a strawberry sundae for 10 cents. Imagine, they'd even put a couple of Nabiscos on the side, and you'd be sitting there listening to the concert and enjoying that. Those days will never come back.
Fall River was much more Yankee when I was growing up.
Well, I grew up on the Highlands, which was a very protected area. It was like an unwritten law. We just never went below the hill.
I grew up on Island Avenue, across from the North Park. There was a cook and a maid and a chauffeur gardener. When I was growing up, you had dressmakers that came a certain time. Miss Lake would cut the dresses out and stitch them, fit them. I don't know how much Mother paid. I know that she paid $3 a week for the nurse girl.
McFarland's was the bakery in the Highlands.
Do you know what cream rolls are? Oh, delicious. And they had them in the bake shop windows. You would be drooling for one. They had them on lovely plates, you know, with a doily on. Oh, there was none of this wrap up fast and here, get going. You know, no.
One of the things I remember was Sunday afternoons. Crowds of people walked up the avenue by the park and on up. They had horse shows, ice skating.
She was a perfect lady. Every time I saw her and talked with her, you couldn't have asked for anybody nicer.
I'm one of the kids that used to go over in front of her house, and we used to sing, Lizzie Borden took an axe, she gave her mother 40 whacks, and when she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. It was a terrible thing to do, and we got lickings every time we did it. But one day we were doing that, and she opened the drapes, and she smiled, and she invited us in the house. And there we all had a glass of milk and cookies.
It was something that a Yankee woman in high Victorian society simply couldn't have done. Or could she?
After the 1843 fire, when the whole center of the city was a disaster, the next day in the center of the burned area, they put a big sign, "We'll try." And so that was where our motto began.
The amazing thing about these fires is that they go so hot that they almost burn the granite blocks.
Fall River has a tragic history of fire. Fire that destroyed many of its greatest mills, homes, and churches. But the people of Fall River have always shown a spirit of survival and renewal, a spirit based on faith.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee.
Zdrowaś Maryjo, łaskiś pełna, Pan z Tobą, błogosławionaś Ty między niewiastami.
Good people, strong, sturdy, honest, the religion of as vital and supreme importance to them, because it is through their church that they were able to speak and think and love and express themselves.
Salve Maria, pleine de grâce, le Seigneur est avec vous. Vous êtes bénie entre toutes les femmes, et Jésus, le fruit de vos entrailles.
Cardinal Medeiros, he really was a symbol. He was a very humble man.
He was a very humble and extremely holy individual who had dedicated his life totally to the service of the underprivileged.
He was the apple of our eyes. He was very, very dear to us.
Hargrave's Mill was the first I ever heard of going out, and I was engaged at that time, and I was being entertained at supper. I was helping the old aunt, and she said, "Florence, if your future mother-in-law seems to be very cool tonight, don't think it's anything that you've done. She's just learned today that she's lost an awful lot of money in the Hargrave's Mill."
I told them, if you don't modernize, you cannot stay in business.
It was their own fault, probably, for not diversifying the industry at an earlier period.
I stayed in the mill 37 years until they closed the doors. I moved all around the mills. They were going down and down and down and down, and they were closing them up. So I kept moving, but of course I was going down lower in jobs.
When all the rest of the country was in the flush of great prosperity in the post-World War I era, Fall River was already well on its way downhill. And by the time the crash came in October of '29, we were ahead of the parade. We were in very bad circumstances.
The only thing that seemed to offer a ray of hope to the population of Fall River were these smaller needle trade industries who occupied possibly 1/3 of a single floor in a cotton mill.
We began to get economic leadership that helped us to understand that if you attracted new industry, you could become healthy again. I think a lot of people began to look at what was the matter and realize that if we came together and worked together and recreated a good image for our city, that we would survive.
There's still a sense of continuity about this place.
There's still people today that are sailing in their wooden sailboats, and they've been sailing for 300 years.
Battleship Cove was created in June of 1965. With the battleship came a new spirit in the city. You had the creation of the Marine Museum within 3 years of the arrival of the battleship.
When the Veracruz came up the bay, it was like Fall River was looking at another Fall River Line ship coming back in. The same gleaming white hull and the same sort of esprit de corps, and everyone came down to the waterfront to see what this was.
One of my teachers, she used to give us a spelling test every Friday. So I don't want to brag, but I happened to, every one of them was 100. It's funny, she says, a foreigner coming here and he gets 100% in all his tests, while the others didn't, you know. So I says, I'm an American just like you are. I says, you were born here, I was born here. I'm American as much as you are.
My father loved education. He appreciated it because he never had any. Of course, my father wanted me to be president of the United States, you know, the first Portuguese president. But when I finished my PhD, he was just as happy with that.
I think that generally the grandchildren of these immigrants are beginning to appreciate what their grandparents went through, what principles, what ideals and customs they brought to this country.
Arrivals, new beginnings. They came to a land of possibility, trading the known for the what might be.
We are a melting pot.
The barriers have been broken.
My children are a mixture of many nationalities.
My own feeling is that the people of Fall River are unique. Somehow or other, there is a mix here but I think is paralleled by few American cities of this type.
They wove their lives together and built a city. The spirit of its people is the fabric of Fall River.
I've traveled here, there, and abroad, and always I've come back to you, because you're clean and above board. You're a city to be proud of, that is true. North Main Street offers shops galore. South Main we all sure adore. You have churches of every kind, and amusements at your lakes and parks will find. Oh, Fall River, oh, Fall River, you are the leading city of America. Not for stills, but for cotton mills. From your mills we are clothing the world. The Empire, vaudeville, and movies are a treat. The Fall River Herald won renown. We must admit you make every hit. Fall River, you're a grand old town. Oh, Fall River, oh, Fall River, you are the leading city of America. Not for stills, but for cotton mills. From your mills we are clothing the world. The Empire, vaudeville, and movies are a treat. The Fall River Herald's won renown. We must admit you make every hit. Fall River, you're a grand old town.